Hey, true believers, Englentine here. This is another part of a 4.5 hour live stream we had with corrupt John Malin. We had Dalton return. My brother Chef Jack returned. It was a lot of fun. Good show that night. Like I said, it was a 4.5 hour marathon, which is always good. This is the part John jumps on and he starts to talk about Bill Messner Loeb, and after that we get into a little Jawbreakers and what we should expect from that. So enjoy. Hey, John, what's up?
How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty well.
Hey, real quick, Englentine, check your Twitter real quick. Your PM.
Alrighty, we'll do. Okie dokie.
All right. Yeah, so free comic book day. Did everyone get something cool or what?
Nope.
Yeah. He didn't.
Hey, Chef Jack, I think this is the first time we've been on a stream together.
Entirely possible.
Oh.
Yeah, so say hello. That's what he did. He said, say hi.
Hi, John. How you doing?
Hi.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Let's see. Fantasy casting for Adrian Warlock. Julian Sand. That would be my fantasy casting.
Julian Sand's 60 years old, though.
I don't care.
Alrighty. So anyway, John, tell us about your day. I mean, this is, and please, by all means, talk about Bill and everything.
Yeah,
you're worried about.
Yeah, so I'll get to Bill in a sec. I went out to my local-ish comic shop, which was BC Comics in Howell, Michigan today. I was out there from 10 to 6.
You're welcome, BC Comics.
What's that?
I said you're welcome.
Oh, I think it's because you just shouted out. It's fine. Keep going, man.
Yeah.
Hold on a second, guys. I'll be right back. What's up?
Anyway, so yeah, so the first 4 or 5 hours, actually went really well. So I had good conversations. I met 3, 4 of the Jawbreakers backers. So that was really cool. And I did a handful of sketches while I was there. And turns out our fans are just as normal as any other fan. So,
really? Holy crap.
Go figure.
I thought they all killed babies and were evil and Nazis.
I mean, I didn't go through their criminal records, but from meeting them, they seemed like perfectly well-adjusted people. Some had kids there with them, and, so it was really cool. And I made a little bit of scratch while I was there. And so later on in the day, people were showing up at different times. I got there right at the beginning, and I left right at the end. And I had been trying to reach out to Bill Messner Loebs ever since the article of him being homeless, because I knew he was somewhat local to me. And my mother-in-law actually goes somewhere for like an elderly dinner on, I don't know, one day a week. And when she was moving down to Georgia, he signed her card. And I was like, wait, you know this guy? She's like, oh, yeah, Bill. So since the homeless news, my mother-in-law has since moved back. And so I was trying to get with her to try to get a hold of Bill. And so I could get a hold of him and have a conversation with him. And he was not showing up at these regular dinners that he used to do. So, and, it could have been his circumstance. I don't know why. And so when I was in talks with my comic shop about Free Comic Book Day, I had brought up Bill Loebs and asked if they were aware of his situation. And they said, yeah, and that they were trying to get a hold of him as well. And that wasn't working out. And right around that same time, Bill had put out a GoFundMe, which was separate from the I think it was called the Severe Weather Network.
Yeah, so he's got his
charity. Yeah, so and that's the charity foundation. I believe they're located in either Howell or Brighton, and they help people that are on hard times. I believe it comes through or goes through a church service, and so when he did the GoFundMe, I had donated to that as well, and I had put a couple messages in there about BC Comics and how they were interested in hosting him. and they were offering to pay him for the day and put him up into a hotel if needed. And I don't know if that was where he ended up getting any kind of connection to BC, but by the end of the day, in the last 3 hours, I think, I look over and boom, there he is. So I'm like, awesome. Oh, great. So I went over there and I had a chit chat with him for a while, actually into the closing hours. And it was really cool because he was telling some really good stories about, you know, his relationship with Sam Keith and when they were founding the Max with Image, which was a really cool story. And actually, I'll probably tell you, I'll go ahead and tell you guys a little bit about it because I don't think any of this was anything too personal or whatnot. And, you know, he was very open about talking about this story. And there's nothing in here that's, you know,
sounds good.
You know, nothing against anyone. So anyways, Bill was already established in I think some of the smaller press stuff, you know, years ago. I don't know exactly when this was, but he was at a convention. I think it might have been in early San Diego, almost definitely out in California somewhere. And he was in a line for a Harvey Kurtzman panel or some sort. And he said that the line was like 2 miles long. And when he was standing in this line, there were 2 younger people, and he was, I don't know his age at the time. From when he was talking, made it sound like he was almost 30 when he was breaking in and into comics. So, and he had said that he had already been published on some level. And so he was probably around 30, and he said there was, you know, a couple of young guys there, teenagers in the line. And at some point, somebody had went through the line and just informed people like, hey, this line is too long. You guys aren't going to be making it in. So he ended up going off with the 2 dudes. And, you know, he was talking about how there was a lot of attitude back in the time, which is pretty similar to now, where, you know, he felt that a lot of fans felt that professionals were actually being dismissive and, you know, not necessarily treating fans, you know, up to, you know, a higher level, which I thought was very interesting. And
yeah. That was the time of the rock star artist.
I think this is before that.
Oh, before it even. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard for me to put it, but I think he was probably talking about the early 80s.
The earliest I ever heard a story like that, where, you know, it was like, oh, this guy's a jackass. He acts like he's better than the fans. That would have been like, I don't know, 1982, 1983.
John Byrne was.
John Byrne still is.
Yeah, we can name names. I understand if you don't want to. There, John. We can do it.
No, he wasn't naming any names, so I'm not going to put any names in his mouth. So he was just telling me that was the case. So he ended up going off with these 2 younger fans, and that I guess he was, you know, having a good conversation with. And basically he was, you know, going to buy him a Coke or whatnot and just have a conversation. And he said at this time that somebody had come up and informed him. I can't remember the name. It's someone old school, and, you know, people that are in depth in comic knowledge would know the name. I think it was another Bill something. And this other Bill had come up and said that he was excited because he thought that Marvel was going to give him an opportunity. And so the other Bill was getting an opportunity from Marvel. And then he was telling Bill Loebs about how he should be excited because he got nominated for some kind of, I don't remember what he said, some kind of grandma award or something like that. And I wasn't sure about, I never heard of this award before, but he said that he and this other pro had got into a conversation and he felt bad because the 2 kids that he had brought along with him, you know, just kind of disappeared. And he's like, shit, you know, because he felt that he kind of made these 2 kids like, yeah, we're not really, you know, this isn't our conversation, so we're just going to split. And so he said these kids were probably around 13, 14, something like that. And like 2 years later, he had one of these kids he ran into again. And this kid that he had felt like he had blown off was a 13, 14-year-old Sam Keith.
Oh, wow.
And yeah,
Wow.
so Sam Keith shows back up, and apparently, you know, was a fan of some of Bill Loebs' art styling. So he was showing Bill the work that he had done, and Bill had said, you know, oh wow, you know, well, you draw, you know, what are like me, I guess. I think it was what he was saying, but better. And so they ended up getting. He ended up helping Sam Keith get into some of the industry. He also had like a Mark Waid story, but I'm not going to tell that. But then you know, it wasn't bad. He didn't say anything bad about Mark Waid. I think he holds Mark in you know, a high esteem, and because I believe he was saying that Mark was a former editor of his when Mark was an editor at DC. So
yeah, I'm thinking I'm thinking he's talking about Sienkiewicz.
Being yeah, the other Bill
No,
being
the other Bill.
No, because I would know that name.
You would know that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, anyways, when he said when Image was coming along, they, I think Jim Lee and or Eric Larson had actually talked to Sam Keith about doing the Max or something. I don't know if they knew that it was going to be the Max at the time for Darker Image. And Bill said he had to turn down Sam Keith like 3 times on the Max. So that's funny because I mean, that's your destiny calling to do this story. And he turned him down 3 times, and eventually he said, okay, because I think he said he turned him down because Darker Image was being pitched as an anthology, and Bill Loebs was of the mindset that, you know, and it's largely true that anthologies don't do well. But he eventually got on, and they ended up doing the Darker Image story of the Max. And what happened was they were the only one who had gotten it done. Like everybody else was late. And apparently what seemed to be going on was it could have been Larson or Jim Lee in the background, but it made it sound like it was almost like they were embarrassed that they hadn't gotten their own end of this stuff up, which makes me think it might have been Jim Lee, because Jim Lee was super busy at that time, and I think Deathblow might have came out through Darker Image, and or a little preview of it. So, anyways, and what they ended up doing was, because they were so far ahead, Jim Lee and or Eric Larson said, "Why don't you guys just turn this into a book?" So that's how the Max comic book series, as we knew it in the early 90s, was formed. So you know, for me, you know, I lived through this time as a fan. So, you know, it was very exciting, you know, because my knowledge of Sam Keith and even Bill Loebs, you know, I mean, I was into Todd, Rob, Jim. I was into the rock stars. So, yeah. I mean, I definitely bought the Max, and I loved the Max. And Sam Keith's art has always been fascinating to me. So that's, you know, a couple of the little stories that he was telling me. So after this convention, we went out and I took him to this pizza place, diner, and we all had some food there, and I covered it. So while we were there, I was explaining to him, I had talked a little bit about it at the comic shop, but I was trying to explain to him about the Patreon, and, you know, how the GoFundMe is good for, you know, essentially like a short, you know, a short-term fix, but a longer-term fix would be something like a Patreon, where you can get, you know, perhaps 200 people all donating $1, and that would be money that he could count on, you know, month in, month out. And you know, I was telling him, you know, he could be writing scripts, or he could be, you know, just doing small updates, you know, whenever he can get online. And, you know, for the most part, people will be appreciative of that communication, or even just telling some of these stories that he has. I mean, he has a lot of them. And so I'm under the impression he's not aware of Patreon, and but he said he has a bank account set up for his GoFundMe. So he's going to look into it, and I'm going to send him an email. Well, it was going to be in the morning, and because I was going to bed, but yeah, so I'm going to try to help him, but I can only help him as much as he can get a hold of me. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not on, you know, I'm not standing next to him doing all this stuff.
Right. You want to help him, but you're not his nurse or his
Right,
assistant.
yeah.
I understand that. But it's really cool because, you know, when we're doing the live stream, getting the word out and telling people about the GoFundMe, it was brought up more than once. I think you brought it up then also, that there does need to be a more permanent solution than just let's give him some money to get, you know, help him get on his feet. Because he needs a job, needs something that'll be income. And at least now, if he does reach out to you, you know, I mean, that's the best kind of charity. It's the teach a man to fish kind of thing. So that's pretty awesome. If you can help him.
You know, if he can get work, if you know, if he can function this Patreon, then more power to him. You know, at that point, it's all in his hands, really. So
yeah, if he does the YouTube channel, then of course you've got yours, we've got ours. Get him on DNC if you can. Maybe when y'all are talking about Jawbreakers or something like that. Of course, he'd be the big boost.
I definitely wouldn't want to put him in a position where he might be seen as being put up as
you don't want
trophy or something.
Yeah, you don't want to display him. We're not talking about displaying him.
Yeah,
I'm talking about if he's doing a YouTube channel where he's talking about old comic book stories, then you get him on to talk about old comic book stories and say, if you want to hear more, go on over.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get him doing a YouTube channel. I'm saying that just through his Patreon and posting stories and telling stories on there in text form.
Hey, that would work too.
Yeah, because I think he's really going to be limited in what he can get done. So, you know, just keep it as simple as possible. And yeah, I told him, I said, you know, there is a community out here that would be interested in talking to you and having conversations, and that's all up to him. I'm not forcing any of this stuff, and that'll always be his decision. So, but he does know that, you know, there are people ready to welcome him.
Yeah.
And
he was around in the time of the rock star artist, but and before, of course, but he wasn't one of them.
Right.
And I know that it's kind of weird because bless you, Jack, by the way. But it's one of those situations. I was talking about this a little bit earlier, and it's a feeling I can't really put into words. It's like when you go see a big name star and then you watch a movie that was done 30 years before and you see that same actor, but they're in a bit part. It's weird because like if you read Superman in the in the period we were talking about, the 80s, 90s and such, you saw his art. You know this guy. You know, it's just one of those things. He's been on everything. He did the Max. You know him, but it seems like a lot of people are just being introduced to the name right now, even though they have known him for decades.
Yeah, he's been around. And, you know, he's been around much longer than I was aware, you know? Yeah. So, you know, but I don't consider myself a in-depth comic book historian by any means. So, you know, I know my time and what I was into. And
so let me ask you a question. This complete geek question. You are a professional comic artist. Do you still geek out over certain artists and writers?
Yeah, maybe to a degree. Not really writers. I think if I saw Todd McFarlane, like had an opportunity to have a conversation with him, that would probably be the closest to geeking out that I would have a problem with. So. Artistically, he's, you know, a huge hero of mine, and you know, Rob is too, and Jim Lee is too. You know, I've met Jim Lee briefly, and actually, he was coming out of a bar, and I was standing there with my brother, and my brother took it upon himself because I wouldn't do this, and he's like, "Hey, Jim," and you know, my brother's not even into comics, but he knew. And he's like, "Hey, Jim, this is my brother. He just did a comic." And Jim's like, "Oh yeah." And then he had a beer and I had a beer, and he did this arm wrap with me, and we both took a drink out of a beer, and like, oh, all right, yeah. He congratulated me and on with his way. So
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so that's the extent of my experience with Jim Lee. And Rob I worked with, so I probably geeked over with Rob and geeked out a little bit with Rob. And Todd, I've only ever seen at a distance. I've been in a panel watching him on a stage, and but I've never shook his hand or had a conversation. So,
yeah, I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you were listening in, but I mentioned how, you know, when you're here and when Ethan is talking and he's here, I really do try to make it feel like you're not John Malin, comic book artist. You're John Malin, geek. You know, let's chat. Let's talk about the situation. Same thing with Ethan. You know, we talk. He's a geek as well, so let's talk that way. But yeah, I met him. Finally got to meet him today.
Ethan is an obsessive. He's one of the worst kinds.
But the thing is you know, I met him and everything, and it was just, you know, like two guys have been talking on the internet for a while. They finally meet, and that's cool. But there was a moment where I was like, holy shit, I know the guy who drew Green Lantern for 50 years. So yeah, there was that moment, you know, where it just occurred to you that this guy's been doing something he's one of the creators of something you've loved for 15 years. So
yeah. But occasionally, something that I've discovered, I know I'm good friends with people that are famous, that just happen to be famous. And either I knew them before they became famous, or I've gotten to know them as people now that they're famous. And there have been occasions where I've just been, you know, shooting the shit with them, and somebody else notices and they're like, holy my God, and I'm like, dude, chill.
He draws comics, right? But yeah, but that's just a difference, a wave of seeing things. Anyway,
well, we're also older people too, so I mean,
the older you get, the less.
Yeah, if I was meeting my heroes at 20, I think I'd probably be a lot more starstruck.
Yeah,
or you know, 25 or whatever.
John, do you know who Phil Foglio is?
The name doesn't sound familiar. If it's
he's a comedy cartoonist. He does he does a lot of fantasy art, but it's all comedy. You know, that the surrealist, situational, you know, funny stuff, and it's not superheroes. It's you know, barbarians and wizards and things like that.
Could you bring that up on the screen capture?
Oh, geez. If I knew how, probably.
I'll do it here.
Sure,
at least, I can share the screen with some pictures and such. So,
but he's been fairly well known. I mean, if you're a D&D player, at least you know who Phil Foglio is, because he did comics in Dragon Magazine, and he did illustrations for their rule books, and he shows up at the conventions, and you know, he's like, you know, he's basically the D&D nerd version of Todd McFarlane. And I've known him now since, I think, 1984, 1985, back when he was, you know, just starting out. I got to know him, you know, and we talk back and forth, and he'll show up at a convention and he'll be like, hey, you want to meet? And, you know, and I'm like, yeah, sure. You know, and he says, well, I'm doing a signing down here at this particular game shop. Come on down, you know, and I show up. And I'm watching people, you know, lose their fucking mind over the fact that they're meeting Phil Foglio. And it's like, it's just Phil, you know.
This is his art.
You know,
he's this guy. I'm sure you've seen the art somewhere.
Yeah, that's him. Oh, I forgot he'd done a couple of Magic cards.
Well, apparently he did quite a bit, but yeah, this is the style art he was. It's like I said, it was very big in the D&D crowd for a while back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine how that would be for, you know, to suddenly find yourself in that situation where you go from, you know,
I try not to hold it against anybody. I mean, everybody reacts differently to, you know, it's a level of importance. And, you know, when you know somebody, or, you know, you have contact with somebody, you know, that can soften, you know, how you feel about them for sure. And, you know, I mean, some people are just going to react different. You might want to have security if that's common, but you know,
so once again, so people know, and it was asked in the comment section, what is Bill's new GoFundMe or Patreon?
There is no Patreon right now, so I just talked to him about it, you know, hours ago.
Right.
So
Well,
I told him when he gets one going to contact me, and I was trying to explain to him, you know, I wasn't going into detail about any of the controversies that go on with some in the community here, and you know, but I was reassuring him. I was like, you know, look, you know, I believe we can get you some money. You know, it may not be a whole lot, but you know, I think like $200 is possible. So, you know, I really do hope that people will come through, you know, and throw a buck his way. So, you know, I think we could do better than 200, but I don't want to, you know, get his hopes up or anything like that. Yeah. But I mean, $200 when you're homeless, you know, that can really change your, you know, that can turn a bad day into a good day. So
it's a bed and a shower for 4 days here in
I
Kissimmee.
can confirm that from personal experience.
Yeah. What about the GoFundMe though? I thought you mentioned he
has a GoFundMe. I would just say do a search for GoFundMe and Bill Messner Loebs, Messner Loebs, I do believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So he has a because originally they had the Severe Network Foundation had put up, you know, a fundraiser, but that was for their charitable services in general. And that's where people started donating to. And that's great, you know, but that helps people all over the area.
Yeah, so, I saw there were a whole bunch of messages but for some reason they stopped. But I saw that there were a whole bunch of messages that were stating, I donated to Bill Messner. This is for Bill. This is for Bill. So, yeah, it's good that he's getting his own because I think they had to stop for a little bit because, you know, that's not, I guess they're giving to more people than just Bill, but all the money that had been coming in for a while was specified for him.
Yeah, but you can't specify that when you donate to a large charitable institution. Yeah. You know, you can't go to the children's whatever fund and say, hey, this is just going to Billy.
Just for Timmy, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, it'd be great if you could, I guess, but then, you know, some people really lose out. But I don't hold that against the Severe Network Foundation or whatever they're called at all. You know, I think they were, you know, they only promoted that they were out to help people in the area, and Bill Messner Loebs happens to be one of those people.
Yeah, so, which is still a good thing. I mean, you know, so if you donated to, I did also, of course, and we had the get together and everything, and it's still a good thing. But it went to people in the area, not just to Bill. If we donated to that, but like I said, it's still good. Oh, and in the comment section, hey, honey, I don't think we're going to be doing bad jokes tonight, so tonight is a decent time for you to listen. My daughter is in the audience. Yeah. Sometimes I'll tell like one of the worst jokes, and then she'll pop up. It's like, oh, God, yeah, okay. Yeah, not that she's heard worse, though. Let's see. Alexis Valens tweeted the link to me for the GoFundMe. Okay, I will share that on Twitter and in the description below.
Yeah, and for anybody in question, the GoFundMe goes directly to Bill Messner Loebs. Yeah. So when I saw him, he looked decent. You know, he wasn't, you know, in anything that I would say is bad shape. I mean, he's skinny, but I think he was always a little skinny. So, you know, if we put a couple more meals in his belly, you know, maybe we'll get him up to a good weight. Yeah. But I don't know, maybe he is at a good weight. And
yeah, and it would be nice to get back to talking about Bill as the artist and in reference to his art rather than the situation. I think that's really something to work for.
Yep. As soon as we fix this problem.
Yeah.
Well, not that we can fix it, but as long as we put in an attempt to get him into a better position. And you know, I mean, even if you donate to the Patreon, you know, there's no expectation of people staying in there, you know, any amount of time. It'd be great if they do, but you know, again, you know, my goal at least is, you know, that we get him a hand up and get him into a better position. And he did mention that he's like, you know, that he's working, I think he said 2 part-time jobs right now. And he said he's had some offers, but none of the offers are able to get him out of a part-time job to where, you know, he can really sacrifice that job.
Yeah.
So, so he's had to turn him down because basically how he explained it was it'd be like he's doing 3 part-time jobs, and you know, he's an elderly man. So
yeah. Okay. Let's see. Dalton's back, by the way. Dalton Mortimer took a break. I've been checking out the comment section. How you doing? He's asking to come on. Dalton, I really wanted to make this segment about Bill. That's why I didn't grab onto another voice. You know, wanted me and Jack to kind of take a back seat and let John.
Yeah, it's also why I haven't said much of a word for a while.
We've been taking a back seat to let John speak so we could get that out. So yeah, in a few minutes here, sure, we'll go on about our business and talk about other things and such. And I certainly appreciate you coming on to talk about Bill's situation and the fact that you missed him. Glad you had a good free comic book day.
Yeah, it was actually pretty fun, and like I said, met backers, met plenty of new people, and other creators there.
So what are you guys up to now as far as Jawbreaker is concerned? What's the Kickstarter up at?
Oh, let me look real quick. We are at 134,537, so 134,000. Yep, we're almost halfway to 135,000 there. So, and I'll put a plug in since we're talking about it and just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
So Diversity in Comics, Richard C. Meyer, aka Zach, had just announced that we're at 135,000 or 134,000 right now, and our $150,000 stretch goal is that Zach or Richard C. Meyer, Brett Smith, the colorist, and myself, we are all going to attend either a comic book store, a local comic shop, and do a meet and greet there somewhere in the United States. And if it's not at a local comic shop, it'll be at a comic book convention. But he had stated that he doesn't want to just go to any convention because his concern is that we are all going to spend thousands of dollars to get out to a convention, like, you know, say if it was Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle, and that we would spend thousands of dollars to get out there. And then what could possibly happen is, you know, these far left extremists could, you know, protest or make a stink about us being hosted there. And then we just put thousands of dollars right into the toilet. So
yeah, I can see how that turned. Actually, I mentioned, as far as the whole SJW thing, I mentioned that this right here, Jawbreakers, has turned out to be the best weapon and the best fight anyone has ever put up against them. The social justice warriors, because for a long time it was like, oh, these guys, they can't do their own thing. And so, of course, Rich being up front and center, he does his own thing. You jump on, and I don't know how it happened, but you know, you're on it now, and it's outselling some of Marvel's big names.
Yeah, I think if as I understand it, if you go by the dollar amount or by the number of backers that we have and our price point of $25, Richard has said, and I think other people have stated, that if you compared our sales as a 30-day sale, which we're almost coming up to, I think we're at like 35, 36 days, or 25, 26 days in. But after the end of a 30-day pre-order, that we are comparable to the number 4 spot, I believe, of the top 10 graphic novel trade paperbacks of the Diamond distribution system, which is Marvel, DC, Image, all the main publishers that show up at your comic shop. We're the number 4 with this graphic novel.
And that is like the ultimate bitch slap right in the face of the social justice warriors that have been saying all this stuff, like, you know, you can't do that, that's why you talk, and so forth and so on. So yeah, congratulations to you guys.
Yeah,
seriously, for it.
Yeah, it gives you know, it gives a little bit of strength when you know, somebody definitely comes after Richard or whatever and says, "Oh, what do you know?" And then he, you know, will obviously be able to say, "Well, we did this," and you know, I mean, that's going to make people have to stop and reconsider, because you know, without naming names, there are other pros that have gone out there, like well-established pros, and you know, people who have 20, 30 years in the industry, and when they do these crowdfunders, you know, they've done them before. You know, we didn't invent it. When they do these, you know, they're pulling, and this is no slight against them or anything, but I'm just putting this out factually. You know, they can be pulling in $30,000. I've seen a legend pull in just $30,000. I've seen another guy, you know, 30 years in the business, manage to squeak out $50,000, and that's fine. But for 2 nobodies, essentially, to go into it, you know, with the support of a community, which, you know, the support of yourself, Captain Frugal, Doug Ernst, Mim Headroom, you know, we have the support of the community to go out there and help promote this, and we're doing $135,000, and we're not done yet. So that's what you can motivate out of people when you build a community and you say, look, you know, we understand what you, the fans, you know, are saying about what's going on with the comic book industry. And
well, and also, excuse me, I'm sorry for interrupting there, but also the community here, even if we are a group of communities or a group of friends that are loosely connected, we treat each other like a community. Like, even if we have arguments, they're still a part of the community. They're still a part of the group. While what we've been seeing from a lot of the social justice warrior side, for lack of a better term, is just the opposite. You like them, therefore I don't want you around. You know, they seem to have put themselves at the top of a hill and are ready to knock down anybody who approaches that doesn't know the password.
Yeah,
well, that's true. That's true up until a point, Aaron. I'm a perfect example of that.
Yeah,
point.
well, no, but then again, you're also part of the community. There are some welcoming voices. There are welcoming voices, even though you disagree with some. There are welcoming. It's the same with everybody. Everybody's got people who they like better than others. But that is something about this particular community. It is accepting. Yeah, not everybody gets along with everybody, and you're right to say an all-encompassing yay or nay on that would be kind of silly.
You know, because I mean, there was a reason
what we're
why
not doing is.
You know.
What we're not doing is we're not saying, well, okay, you do like this book, then you can't be a part. We need to get rid of you and everybody who follows you, which is what the other side has been saying. So while this has created a community that would support Jawbreakers, the other side has been putting walls up to stop people from supporting their stuff.
Well, I was mostly thinking of like the guys who, you know, had a problem with me, for example, giving that one issue of Black Panther by Ta-Nehisi Coates a perfect rating.
But look at the reception you got today.
Yeah, that's true.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Anyway, John, sorry about that. We had to get into a brother's argument.
But, you know, my point of view on the social justice warriors is that, you know, these people are extremists and they are dangerous. And it's for anybody to pretend that that isn't the case is very dangerous, because let's all keep this very real. There is a real discrimination that goes on in Hollywood. There is a reason that people that are simply conservative have to hide that. These are very real attacks that come out on their livelihood. And again, I don't consider myself conservative. I consider myself a moderate. I don't play teams.
Oh, we're on the hook too, bud. We're on the hook too. We are
Jack's
just
a
as
liberal.
guilty.
Yeah,
I am a liberal, but I'm on the moderate side of liberal. And I have had many an SJW say, well, you're no better than the alt-right. And I'm like, excuse the hell out of me.
Yeah, no, I've said that many times, that SJWs are far left extremists. And,
absolutely.
There's people that are liberal and there's people that are conservative, and they're all under attack. And anybody to the right of extremists, is a Nazi, racist, homophobe, etc.
I mean, I have said multiple times that I do not consider social justice warriors to be liberal. They may be on the left.
Oh, they're liberal,
but they are absolutely not. They're absolutely not liberal. They may be on the left as far as politics are concerned.
Are you going with the argument that they're not liberal in the sense of the word liberty?
They're not liberal in that they don't stand for the things that liberals stand for. They champion causes that sound liberal, but their actual actions make them just as fascistic as the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists that they claim to be opposing.
Yeah. So have you guys thought of a sequel to Jawbreakers?
There's certain things that we've discussed. I don't know what I can say at this point. This is all for Richard to decide when to talk about and whatnot. So for my part, I'm a hired hand, pretty much like everybody else is a hired hand. I might have been on board from, basically what it was day one of this thing. But Jawbreakers is Richard's project, and we are talking about doing some other stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, and if everything goes well, into the future, then yeah, there's going to be eventually there is going to be more Jawbreakers. I'm sure, whether I'm involved or not. So,
okay, well, that's cool. And there you go, true believers. I hope you enjoyed that. I did. I have been listening to this as I've been cutting it for shorter segments. Please, if you feel like you could give to Bill Messner Loebs, he has his own GoFundMe. The link is in the description below, so you can go over and donate. Also, if you like this video, you want to see more, click like, share, of course, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, if you don't mind supporting this channel, go on over to Patreon, drop $1 in the till. Helps keep making videos for you, helps to keep getting better equipment and software for you as well. I'd like to thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.